Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And thanks for taking out the morning from the weekend and joining this webinar. I'll quickly introduce myself, and I'd appreciate. I'm not sure if everybody has rights to unmute, but uh, I'm guessing everybody is from SAP ecosystem at least, and some or the other level of experience. I personally have about 12 years of experience in SAP ecosystem. I started my career after my engineering in computer science, and I was campus placed in one of the leading software service firms. I was working with L&T Infotech, and after L&T Infotech, I have worked with multiple Big Fours. I've worked with Deloitte. I've worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers. I've also worked with Accenture. While having worked with Accenture, I've also got the opportunity to work with SAP themselves, wherein we were working in product development, specifically into the area of defense and public sector. And these days, I'm working with a product-based company, and again, a product-based company, not in terms of software. And I'm working as a lead consultant there, leading a team and architecting few in-house softwares there for the businesses. I have experience of training across multiple corporate batches and personal groups as well, wherein I have trained more than 50 and less than 100 probably students who are our colleagues, let's say, and who are working across multiple software service-based industries today. So that's me. I have been exploring SAP. I can't say that I am a know-it-all or I am an expert of everything, but what I was born as an ABAPer. I started with ABAP in my career, and with due course of time and with leading multiple S/4HANA implementations, I became a full stack developer, learning UI5 and then Fiori Elements and RESTful ABAP programming and cloud application programming. And with the start of SAP BTP, which was earlier known as SAP Cloud Platform, I started with SAP Leonardo, which was the seed SAP had put in building IoT-based applications. And from there, today I am architecting and trying to set up a center of excellence group in my current firm on SAP BTP. Yeah, so that is me. Okay, that makes sense. So our agenda for today is we'll understand what BTP Cloud Deployment Model is, from understanding the different services, kinds of services SAP offers, and what is the basic difference between them. Then we'll go to the environments available on SAP BTP for development environments, runtimes, you can call it like that. BTP, then we'll go into the two programming models available across these environments, which are SAP Cloud Application Programming Model and RESTful ABAP Programming Models. We'll go a little deeper into the concepts, if not concepts, at least the keynotes of what are the differences between CAPM, which is the acronym for Cloud Application Programming Model, and RAP, which would be RESTful ABAP Programming Model. We'll understand what is the what are the steps. Basically, we have tried to simplify it and put together certain steps which helps you understand what actually includes development from scratch on SAP BTP. We'll also understand what is the extension development concept and how that works, because SAP BTP is at times used as a sidecar for the on-prem systems. So extension development in those cases becomes a very integral part of it. And in the end, we'll touch upon the new buzzword which SAP also highlighted on in the recent Sapphire, which is called Keep the Core Clean. And SAP sells BTP with this tagline many a times these days. Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, so BTP Cloud Deployment Model. To understand business technology platform or BTP, SAP BTP, you should also be aware of certain very generic cloud computing terms, or I would say provisionings. Basically here in the slide, you can see IaaS, which is called Infrastructure as a Service, PaaS, people might call it PaaS at times, Platform as a Service, SaaS or SaaS, Software as a Service. If you could pay attention to the legends here, the ones in the light green are managed by else or anybody else, and in the white box are managed by us. So in each of these columns, if you see on-premise, what makes your ERP, or what makes your, let's say, your computer for that matter, or a software you work on or a business works on. You will have you would have applications. You'll have data supporting those applications. You'll have a runtime. You'll have the middleware, where in multiple cases, when you're talking to a tertiary system, you'll have an operating system. Either it is on development environment or on the server itself, an operating system is a given. In many times, you'll have virtualizations. You'll have servers, like I said. You'll have storages, and you'll have networking. On-premise basically refers to the traditional mode of hosting and managing softwares and hardwares within an organization's own physical infrastructure, such as data centers located on their premises, as in inside their boundaries. You might have seen in your firms that there is a room with servers and lights, and which is air conditioned 24/7 and is heavily guarded. Those are the server rooms. In case of on-premise, the company has to heavily invest into the hardware and the software themselves, and the maintenance of these hardwares and softwares, and the networking, which is network infrastructure also, which is supporting these software and hardwares. One step moving away from an on-premise total control architecture, you would find infrastructure as a service, wherein a company lends or hires, let's say, few services from a service provider. Let's say if I don't want to buy everything, I would like to buy a hardware, I would like to buy my software, but I wouldn't want to do the networking myself. So you could go ahead and hire networking from a service provider. And these days, multiple service providers like Azure, Microsoft, AWS, Amazon, and GCP, Google Cloud Platform, would just provide you these kind of services. So you could go ahead, or a firm can go ahead and hire networking, storage, servers, virtualization. So here, if you could see, anything that relates to an infrastructure, you lend that as a service. And that kind of an architecture, if an organization is following, it would called an IaaS infrastructure or infrastructure as a service. And everything else they still buy and maintain themselves. IaaS provides you virtualized computing resources over the internet. And in an on-premise IaaS setup, an organization would manage its own data centers and hardwares and networking equipments. But the infrastructure would be virtualized usually, and then it'll give you multiple benefits. We'll probably dig deeper uh, later, but the basic two words, if you would like to remember, would be scaling and resource allocation, because uh, because let's say if you imagine 5 years later, the networks across the world used to support lesser speed, and today it supports more speed. If you'd like to expand across multiple regions, you'll have to go invest into a lot of networking, and today with IaaS, you could just go ahead and hire more virtualization. Moving a little further from IaaS, you would have a more uh, uh, more diluted network, wherein you're hiring more services and controlling less of them, and thus reducing the engagement, let's say, and the responsibilities of a certain firm in maintaining their own IT infrastructure. In this case, we call it platform as a service, where you lend the platform as well from a different service provider, which the leading ones I named previously. In this case, you also lend as a service the middleware and the operating systems. IaaS provides, again, not IaaS, platform as a service. So PaaS delivers software applications over the internet again on a subscription model. Like today, you subscribe to Netflix or Amazon Prime, right? So similarly, you subscribe to an operating system and you pay as you go, as in how much you use, um, or how many users are using it, and how much of a in-memory capacity you're utilizing. On those parameters, a payment cycle is determined on the basis of which the companies charge the other companies who are lending these services, and that's called PaaS basically. The runtime, the data, and the applications are still owned by the hearsay company, which is running the software. And in the end, if you would, let me admit this here, that across the globe, many companies wouldn't want their data to go outside, and that's why they at least own the data into their on-premise system today, and that's the nerve of the day. And that is why you would find PaaS-based architectures to be in the majority across the globe, because it is still a revolution, if I may say, to move to the cloud-based architecture, and people are still understanding the security concerns and the DR concerns, the disaster recovery concerns of moving your data centers over the cloud. So PaaS is something you would find in abundance across the world. But if you talk about a complete cloud-based system architecture, it would be software as a service as well. So when you're having a SaaS-based architecture, you're lending everything. Just the solution is yours, but the application runtime is on the cloud. The data centers are also on the cloud. The runtime is also lent on the cloud, and we'll talk later that SAP has about four kinds of runtimes available or environments available, for leading technologies available. The middleware would be on cloud, the operating system, virtualization, servers, storage, and networking. Everything would be based out of BTP in this case. Okay, next slide, please. Now, what BTP offers for developers, and I would include for security as well. what BTP offers for security, what BTP offers for administrators or basis. Now, when I say the entire infrastructure is controlled by by BTP, that is only in case you're going for infrastructure as a service. And if everything else is still controlled by a firm, the basis folks are involved a lot. Also, if you're going for infrastructure as a service, there is an administrative part available or needs doing on BTP as well. So think of a cloud environment as your own computer, but on cloud. Today, you might be using many services. Let's say there are multiple games across which are internet based. You install them, but let's say PUBG, right? It's a game wherein you install a client on your phone or on your laptop or on your gaming console. You do download the maps as well, but the basic runtime runs on a server because you have to be connected to internet. It's more or less like the GUI based approach which we earlier had. Um, in this case, you don't install anything at all because your software and your administration, everything runs out of a browser-based cockpit in case of BDP, right? So let me start with the developers and then I'll probably touch on to what it has for the administrative colleagues. For the developers, basically, um, in case of ABAP, let's say, if you were thinking somewhere in about 5 years ago that ABAP is losing its charm and you were not getting to develop so many things, basically the front-end applications. ABAP was turning out to be a language of yesterday and was limited to only building tables and building BAPIs and building RFCs, anything that executes in the background, right? And if there are ABAPers here, you would understand that starting about 6-7 years ago, Web didn't pro ABAP, and then the Web didn't pro Java, and then Fury, and then UI5. They took over the UI part, and then ABAP was limited to the middleware in the backend, right? So BDP offers to the developers the uh, ability to develop an end-to-end application. Even the ABAP has gotten new life with BDP, and we'll discuss about the RESTful ABAP programming model later. But basically, more than the ABAPers, it also helps the front-end developers because it makes the back-end development easier, making it CDS based. So you don't have to go ahead and write prehistoric code, right? It brings in models and runtimes, which helps you render backend if you are able to develop a database model or an entity model, and vice versa. If it helps the backend developers render a front end in the same way if you're able to model an entity based data model. So it drives rendering of backend tables and backend logic with the help of one model. And the same model can also render the UI. So it could go both ways. And with the least development efforts, the developers could develop a full stack application. Right. It also opens the capability for you to go ahead and build open source applications, interact with the people over the internet, and in true sense globalize. BDP also gives you the capability to use the DevOps tools. You could use Git for the technologies like ABAP, and it also provides you multiple other services over the cloud themselves, which are like workflows or the olden days PIs has now become HCI PI or CPI. The name might change, because the rebranding keeps happening, but the nutshell stays the same. It gives you the Launchpad service, the very same Launchpad service which was available on premise would be available as an FLP service on BTP. So everything you use to build is already available on BTP as a service. Everything you have built or what you would have inspired to build would be available on BTP as a service, plus giving you the capability to make it actually open source in many terms, or uh, uh, like in terms of the latest development models, you'll be able to incorporate them and probably, yeah. So I'll leave it at that. What basis folks or the security has a little bit on that is it'll you still need to handle the administration on BTP. You still need to handle security roles on BTP and IDPs on BTP. So there is a lot for administrative people and the basis folks there, because you still need to build the infrastructure, although it is on cloud. You need to customize it for your firms. Moving on to the environments available on BTP. So on BTP, you have basically 4 environments available. One is called Neo environment. Then you have the ABAP environment. You have the Kyma environment. You have the Cloud Foundry environment. Neo environment is the environment wherein everything is still maintained by SAP. So it is more like on-premise on cloud, or a private cloud, if you may say so. All right. So although SAP is phasing out Neo, so Neo won't be available for a lot of time. It is available today, and few of the older services which were introduced in the beginning of SAP BTP are today available only on Neo and are slowly phasing out. So although you need to understand what Neo is, but Neo won't be available for a lot of time. One word understanding about what Neo is. Neo is a provisioning by SAP themselves, wherein SAP will host everything themselves, will maintain and support everything themselves. When I say everything, I mean all the features or all the software components or the architectural components we discussed in the first slide when we were comparing SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, and on-premise, right? The 3 leading platforms or environments or runtimes are ABAP, Kyma, and Cloud Foundry. Starting from Cloud Foundry and Kyma. You must have heard of Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes in terms of generic cloud computing. So what SAP did is SAP took the 2 most famous runtimes, right? Or 2 most scalable and robust runtimes across the globe, which were supporting the developers uh, across the regions to develop open source and DevOps based applications, and multiple industries were using them into multiple other cloud-based softwares. And on the basis of the popularity and the agility of their infrastructures, SAP has taken Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes as is in terms of their functioning and the administrative infrastructure, and they have built a version of their own on top of them. So Cloud Foundry, SAP Cloud Foundry would be entirely based on the generic Cloud Foundry open source technology, and Kyma runtime would be based out of Kubernetes. So if you already know Cloud Foundry generically across as an open source technology or Kubernetes, you would relate to these environments way better because they are mostly same. Cloud Foundry and Kyma allow you to bring your own technology and bring your own solution and bring your own architecture of these applications and build in multiple languages like Java, Python, Node.js, Ruby, PHP, HTML, React, and Node.js, like I already said, and then build your own infrastructure and application over Cloud Foundry and Kyma. The ABAP runtime allows you to bring the old ABAP onto the cloud and build just ABAP or pure ABAP solutions. When I say pure ABAP, I mean that earlier to be able to code ABAP, you needed the entire server, right? You need because the ABAP runtime was embedded into the ABAP workbench, which was only available when you have an entire S4 system, right, or ECC system, or the old systems. What SAP has done is taken out the ABAP runtime. Now you don't need the entire S4 infrastructure or the entire workbench to be able to create a table, right? Like Java, you don't need the runtime, the entire runtime. You have you you can encapsulate a Java piece of code into a jar file and send it to your friend, right? You couldn't do that with ABAP. Now you can do that with ABAP. Because you have an environment available on BTP wherein you could just go and code ABAP artifacts and make them interact with other technologies or build them into independent APIs. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Going a little more into the explicitly available two programming models: Cloud Application Programming Model (CAPM) and ABAP RESTful ABAP Programming Model. So across, so now if you guys please keep in mind the four environments we just talked about: the Neo, the ABAP environment, the Cloud Foundry, and the Kyma runtime. You have basically two programming models suggested by SAP. You can use your programming model. Like I said, bring your own programming model, bring your own application architecture, bring your own programming model. But basically, the two suggested and available in detail, there is support available. There is documentation available for these two programming models from SAP, and SAP is also working on a few other programming models. Basically, the first one, Cloud Application Programming Model, allows you to use, well, again, today you can use any front-end technology that you want, and but there are three programming models which are supported nicely in terms of documentation and support, which are React, Node.js, and CDS. So CDS is a programming model developed again generically and adopted by SAP, wherein you need to model the database entity, and on the basis of that, your UI and the backend would be generated. CAPM provides you a modern and a flexible development environment wherein you have the possibility to build multi-target applications. Also, you have the possibility to control your backend services. You have the possibility to build everything in one application. You have the possibility to follow DevOps. So Cloud Application Programming Model is a detailed and flexible programming model which can be implemented via any IDE available today. You could use Studio Code, or you could also use SAP's IDE, which is available as a service on BAPI, which is called Business Application Studio. So that's CAPM. CAPM allows you to code across these environments. CAPM can be used in Cloud Foundry and Kyma both. And yeah, we'll get into the details of CAPM. But on the other hand, ABAP RESTful Programming Model allows you to develop ABAP-based artifacts. Not going into the technicalities of them, but it's basic ABAP, let's say on steroids. You can build CDS models there. You can build behavior definitions, and you can also render UI applications on the basis of them. You also have a wide range of other artifacts you can build in CAPM and wrap ABAP as well, which will help you develop APIs and applications in various scenarios. Okay, next slide, please. What if it is so? Then what are the differences? So SAP CAPM, the Cloud Application Programming Model, if you call the model M. So CAP and RAP. Uh, CAP is an only cloud service. So CAP programming model you cannot implement on your on-premise system, but RAP, well, having introduced on cloud, was also introduced in ABAP 7.5 and 7.55 later on. So you could also follow RESTful ABAP programming model if you are working on an on-premise system and it is not limited to BTP. CAP is an open source technology and follows SAP stack, wherein you'll have HANA database, you'll have CAP CDS in the middle, and the CAP UFI. Although it follows this stack, but you could also use Oracle databases uh, or PostgreSQL or any other database with available open connectors on SAP BTP, although you'll have to maintain them yourselves because SAP will not be supporting them. SAP, in case of SAP RAP, you'll have SAP CDS and SAP ABAP based architecture on application. Just that when you build on BTP, it's called ABAP on cloud. The databases, in this case, SAP CAPM, SAP supported database would be HANA Cloud. But then again, with open connectors, you have the independence to go ahead and get into any of the other databases. In case of SAP ABAP, you are bound to HANA databases today. Okay, so if I have programmers here on the call, you understand the linear programming and when you are actually querying tables from hard connected database, right? When you're writing a select stars or select single statement, you are pointing your query towards a database. But if you would like to avoid that linear programming model, and if you want to go more abstract, you should be able to do it to a random database, but then it would involve a very dynamic programming. If so, all the constraints of the new database you'll have to handle in your ABAP code. So given all the complexity, we'll first for here say that in case of RESTful ABAP, you're limited to HANA databases. Your application layer in case of CAPM would be a Node.js based application or Java based application. In case of ABAP, your application layer would be an ABAP environment based application layer as it is in the on-premise based ABAP today. Front end in CAP, like I said, when you're using Cloud Application Programming Model, you can use any front end technology you want. You could use Node.js, you could use React, you could use UI5 or Fiori or Java, just with the star marked constraint that good level of support and good level of documentation from SAP will only be available in case you're using Node.js, React, or CDS. So for let's say if you want to build an application in BTP and you would like to use Cloud Application Programming Model, but you want to use .NET. Now you can do it in theory, but you will not find documentation and support from SAP. You'll have to do your own R&D, and then even if you reach out to SAP, you would get a suggestion to rather to Kyma runtime. Then again, you'll have to choose the best possible combination of which runtime would you like to use and which programming model you would like to use. In case of RAP ABAP, only APIs are generated. UI development is not a part of RAP architecture, but UI is rendered out of the APIs you generate, right? So in RAP, you could basically go ahead and build an entity model. The UI would be rendered out of that. You cannot actually go ahead and build the UI yourself. The deployment. The CAP-based applications can be deployed on Cloud Foundry as a single package or two packages, UI separately, and your backend and the services separately. Wherein, if you if you understand the monolithic and microservices based architecture, you can follow both of them on cloud when you're following cloud application programming model. When you're following RESTful ABAP programming model, your application would be basically hosted out of ABAP environment themselves. ABAP report support. The services generated by CAP can be used by ABAP reports via external HTTP request calls. Basically saying that you could build services in using cloud application program model. You can deploy them onto the environment of your choosing, and then they can be exposed to your own ABAP environment or to external environments as a service, and they can call them as external HTTP request calls. And similarly with ABAP, you could build services, you could expose them, you could deploy them, you could expose them, but again, you'll have to build them in the way that they are very abstract and they're not following the linear programming approach of usual ABAP code. CAP and RAP both support V2 and V4 OData services. Again, in air quotes, you need to understand what are the limitations of OData V4 today and what are the limitations of V2 and what actually V4 gives you. Development IDEs, like I said, for cloud application programming model, you can use on-prem or the software-based IDE, which is the Visual Studio Code, or the web-based IDE, which is Business Application Studio. For a RAP, you need to develop out of the ADT, which is available for Eclipse and HANA Studio. Okay, next slide, please. So we're going towards the detailed development of what actually involves development from scratch, right? And I would, I mean, this is very less time to understand the entire development lifecycle of what happens when you're developing on BTP and then where I'm saying developing, I mean to say independent of the environment you choose, right? So before I go ahead and talk about this, I would like to recap again if you have not connected with me. So first you go ahead and choose your cloud provider. In this case, we chose SAP BTP. Then you need to go and choose your environment, right? You have 4 environments available on BTP. You choose one of them. Once you have chosen your choice of environment for your business infrastructure, you'll go ahead and choose a programming model. Now, if you have chosen CAP or RAP, it doesn't matter, but you need to understand the choice sequence. Now, once you have reached to a programming model, you would be choosing your database technology. You'll be choosing your database programming model. You'll be choosing your middleware technology and middleware programming model. And similarly, your UI technology and UI programming model. Basically, CAP would serve all these purposes for you because it gives you independence to choose any programming model, any programming language for UI and backend, right? Okay, so in terms of what involves building from scratch, your first step would be you want to set up a project. You'd start by creating a new project in your development environment, like I said, such as SAP Business Application Studio or SAP Studio Code. That would be your first step. Second step would be you'll model an entity. You'll do the data modeling or you'll do the entity modeling. You'll define your data structure using usually, not basically, the core data services for CAPM and ABAP directory for RAP. You'll create entity, you'll create associations, you'll create annotations to describe the data model and relationships between them. After that, you'll go ahead and create a service definition. Define the service definitions using annotations for CAPM or create a data definition using DDIC views for RESTful ABAP. So right now I'm covering both programming models and a very bird eye view of what steps would you be following if you're developing an application from scratch, right? So you'll be building data model, then you'll be defining a service on top of that data model. So when you're defining a service, you'll define you'll define services using annotations on CAP and DDIC view for RAP. You'll also specify if you'd like to do CRUD operations on your application, create, read, update, delete operations, and access control. And then again, my basis colleague or administrative colleague who was asking about what basis needs, the access control is a huge topic, and a lot of involvement from security administrators and basis administrators would be needed in that area. The business logic. You'll come to the business logic after service definition. You'll implement your business logic using JavaScript in case of CAPM. Now, when I say JavaScript, you need to please bear with me. I mean the entire family of the JS. And you'll be using ABAP methods for RESTful ABAP. You'll utilize CAPM's Node.js based service handlers or ABAP based service implementations for app. We'll come to user interface then. You'll create your UI artifacts using SAP Fiori Elements, SAP UI 5, or React or Node.js in terms of CAPM. And like I said, the UI would be rendered in case of RESTful ABAP Programming Model, and you'll have basically no direct control. You can obviously tweak it or extend it from the backend, but it is basically rendered in case of ABAP or RESTful ABAP. The next step would be UI annotations and extensions, wherein, like I said, both sides of the world, right? UI programmers would be able to handle the backend with the help of the entity modeling, or the backend developers would be able to handle the front end with the help of the annotations. So you can enhance your UI using annotations like UI annotations for CAPM or annotations on your CDS entities in case of RAP. You can add custom fields, you can add actions, you can add behaviors to your UI elements. The next step would be integration and OData services. You can establish integrations with other systems using OData services. You can configure service bindings, remote resources, and communication arrangements for CAPM. Going forward, you would also need testing and debugging. You can test your application's functionality using built-in tools and debugging capabilities available out of Business Application Studio. The same I cannot say about the other tools which are not maintained by SAP. You have troubleshooting and you have issue fixing support available. There are multiple code-based debuggers available on Business Application Studio. You can go ahead and troubleshoot your data model and UI interactions as well. You can go deployment in the next step. Once you have done your testing and debugging, you'll look towards deployment and monitoring. You can deploy your application to SAP BTP environments. When I say environments, I mean the others which I talked about previously, ensuring the accessibility of the users onto the environments. And you can monitor your application's performance and logs and patterns using the services again available on SAP BTP. I'll not go into the details, but you also have some open source softwares. When I say open source, I mean the versions of open source softwares available on SAP BTP. And obviously, once you subscribe, you'll have to pay. And when I say you, I mean the organization. And the continuous improvement is a CI/CD. You can gather the feedback, you can control the versioning, you can apply updates, enhancement, and optimize over time your applications and keep releasing, excuse me, different versions of them. Yeah. Now talking about enhancements or extensions, it is an important part because not all the organizations would directly go on to bringing their entire ERP onto the cloud. So today, like I said, the software as a service is kind of a full-fledged go to the cloud, and you'll not find that at least in the bigger organizations. And in that case, the SAP BTP would usually be available as a sidecar for development of anything which is remote and which is independent of the standard solution, and that will only be developed on SAP BTP. And multiple organizations would also be doing just the extensions using the side-by-side extension approach onto the SAP BTP cloud. When I say side-by-side, it means that you will not want to develop, enhance or edit the standard code of your standard applications, and you would rather go ahead and do a side-by-side extension onto BTP and protect your core, which we will go later on. Slightly touching upon the points available here, you'll be building upon the existing system. Now, extensions development involves working within an established software application or platform and making modifications or additions to it, right? I am hoping we all understand what extension means. Customizations and tailoring. Extensions are often created to tailor a software product to specific user requirement or business needs. I mean, I understand you might have worked across multiple clients who have heavily customized their applications, and this extensions development on BTP would be very useful when you're replicating the same thing on cloud. This could involve adding new features, modifying existing ones, or adjusting the user interface. Integration. What integration means is extension may also involve integrating third-party services or tools or components to enhance the capabilities of an existing application. Preserving code functionality. Extension development aims to maintain the core functionality and stability of original application while introducing a new capability. API and interfaces. Many softwares today or many software platforms providing APIs, with application programming interfaces, or extension points that developers can use to create extensions, or the ABAP colleagues would understand the hooks which we used to have in the on-premise ABAP system. These APIs allows developers to interact with the existing application and extend its capabilities. You have plugins and modules available. In the context of certain software systems, extensions are often referred as plugins, and modules or add-ons or extensions themselves. These terms represent specific types of extensions, and that can be added to a software application. Now we have version capabilities, and we also have maintenance and upgrades. Developers need to ensure that their extensions are capable with the versions of the software, or compatible with the version of the software they're extending. Changes to the core application in future updates may impact the functionality of the extensions. In case of maintenance and upgrades, like any other software development, extensions require ongoing maintenance and updates and compatibility checks, especially as the base application evolves, because you're basically extending a standard application, and the standard application keeps changing. So you'll need to keep maintaining them. Basically, all these points are served by SAP BTP in terms of the two extension principles. And the later one, the side-by-side extension, is majorly popular on SAP BTP. Yeah, and reaching out to the main buzzword, keeping the core clean. Well, basically, and I remember we have basis colleagues here. You understand, and even the others, the upgrade cycles for the heavily customized on-premise systems used to be very large, cutovers, and then the shutdowns over the weekends, and SPDD and SPAU arranging and adjusting the custom developments and losing a lot of them or few of them. It used to be a big problem. And when you are upgrading a central finance system, it becomes an even more complicated task and a drill. Keeping the core clean helps you do that faster. So the basic idea is to not to do any customizations onto your core system. When I say customization, I mainly mean that enhancing your standard solution, and I also mean building custom solutions onto your core. Keeping the core clean asks you to build any of your custom or independent solutions over SAP BTP, so that your SAP ECC or SAP S4 or any non-SAP system stays independent of any of these customizations, and all the upgrades would be smoother and easier, and allows your backend system or the core system to stay with zero technology debt. You could use in-app extensions, or you could use side-by-side extensions to have your standard codes available on SAP BTP with the same look and feel and the same functionality, but no customization or no custom code, hence no hindrance to your upgrades. You could have seamless integration with the smart data integration or SAP V or data V4 or V2 between SAP BTP and SAP on-premise. You could also use SAP Cloud Connector. So the integration is seamless, and therefore making SAP BTP and SAP S/4HANA or ECC seem like the same system. You could also build multi-target applications, wherein one application on SAP BTP could be targeting towards your ECC and S4 systems at the same time. So your apps, custom apps or enhanced apps could stay in SAP BTP, and your core solution or the simple solution could stay in SAP on-premise, S4 or ECC in this case. And with this whole approach, you could go into the desired concept of having an intelligent enterprise today. You'll have a stable core, your business will be agile, and your innovations will be faster. So tomorrow, if you would like to change something, if you would want to scrap custom solutions completely, the dependency is so much so encapsulated into SAP BTP that you could innovate your on-prem and as well as your custom solutions at the same or even better speed. With that, I'll close and hand over to Ankit.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
So I have one question here. As you mentioned, like S4 core clean, you mentioned like we should not create any custom developments or extend the standard ones within S4. Only we can use in-app in case we need to do it in S4 itself, then we have to use in-app. So I do agree, but with in-app there is less flexibility of enhancing the logics and all. So and also there are cases like wherein we don't have APIs provided by SAP. There are a lot of functionalities where there is no APIs. Okay, so in that case, how can in-app or without writing some custom development helps us? That is first query. And second query is like suppose we have a UI application developed in S4. Hello.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. So we have already used standard Fiori application developed in S4, and now we need some extension on top of it. Maybe it will be it will not be possible with in-app extensibility. We have to go with some custom logic into it. So how can we extend that with using side-by-side extensibility? Can we move this particular UI application to BTP, or else we have to develop from scratch? So these are the two queries I have.
Yeah, you're right. In-app extension would not give you enough flexibility, and that's probably you answered your own question. Then you have to go for side-by-side extensions, right? So that's where your question answers itself. That yeah, if you have the
No. First point is there is no API. Okay, there is no API provided by SAP in S4. But I need some CRUD operation to be happen in S4, or else some analytical query to be executed in S4. So in that case, we
you
have
need
to
to
go
develop your custom API, right? So if there is no API, and I'm assuming you have searched the entire workbench and you didn't find an API. So the only solution left here is to go ahead with the side-by-side extension and your custom API. Now you'll have to build both of these on SAP BTP. Again, to build your API, you can choose your environment, you can choose your programming model to take your
No, can I create API? Because see, until unless we have backend API, that we cannot extend it to side-by-side extension, right? Because I need some data, some tables or some functionality
yeah, you
from
can
S.
create your API on BTP. You can create your custom tables on BTP. You can create your ABAP logic on BTP.
Let me explain a scenario. Suppose you take warehouse management, where
Mhm.
SAP is not at all investing anything, but few
Mhm.
customers are using warehouse management and they have BTP in place. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Now for warehouse management, there are some function modules that BAPI is available in S4, which we
Mhm.
cannot access into BTP. So now I need some crude operation to happen in S4. So
Mhm.
how come I can do a side-by-side extension with the existing BAPIs?
Okay. So SAP BTP with the help of smart data integration, right? Uh,
Yes.
SDI allows you to call any RFC which is available on your on-premise or a BAPI on-premise from BTP itself.
Okay.
So you can build an API, expose it into another service. There's a service called API Management Hub. You might have heard of it.
Yeah.
No, no, we don't need to do all those things. We have a managed CDS view, unmanaged CDS view. So if you go with unmanaged CDS view, you can write you can call your own function module in the CDS view itself.
No, we are talking about CAPM. CAPM is the uh, better way to develop side-by-side extension
See,
than the
so
SOP.
CAPM is the DB which is there in BTP. Okay, if you want a DB which is there in S4, like no, the
CAPM
tables
is
are what are the things. If you want to
sorry,
expose them, either
sorry,
you need to initial load
it's
completely, you need
not
to push
DP.
to BTP, or you need to create a API at S4 end. No, the BTP can be accessed.
No, that is wrong approach. That is the reason that I asked the question and he is answering correctly. So
Uh-huh.
let us hear from him. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I lost the chain of thought, but that's basically once you have API management, you will have your you'll have service available and which can be integrated into your CAPM SRV.
Okay. I thought like SDA with SDA only tables can be replicated and then access it directly. But yeah, this is the approach. I don't know. So yeah, we'll try this part. And yeah, second question is UI extensions. So we have a huge suppose huge Fiori application in S4. I mean, Fiori standard application in S4. Now
Mhm.
I need some custom fields, but the logic is a bit huge only, not the simple one. So,
Mhm.
in-app is not possible. So, how can I extend this application by utilizing the same UI in BTP?
You don't want by utilizing the okay. So if you want to drastically change, right here, let's face it that there's no other way than just copying it and changing it, but which is basically the other name for side-by-side extensions. Um,
I think we have to
so
develop a application, right? Totally in BTP.
yeah, you'll have to if the changes are so extensive, right, that you cannot
Yeah,
achieve it. There is no other way because the SAP is also trying to limit the extent to which they allows you customization, right? Because they also have to serve the purpose of easy upgrades. So
correct.
so if you think of it from their perspective, they cannot allow you to go and drastically change the applications.
So,
Although from my experience of developing a standard application, SAP is also working on very flexible enhancement approaches, which should be available in near future.
okay, okay, okay. So, as of now, it's a drawback from UI side.
You could call it drawback because, but yeah, you could call it a limitation, I would rather say.
Correct,
In
correct.
case of heavy customizations,
Mhm.
you would need to go ahead and do it yourself from scratch.
Yeah. Why ask this question is like suppose you take few clients, like
Mhm.
especially Indian clients,
Mhm.
they many fields into standard transactions, or in case of S4 it's a standard period. So in that case definitely we cannot add directly directly into standard Fiori application by so that's the reason I just asked it. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And you're talking about very liberal clients. I have worked with clients who hate UI5 in Fury, so they would rather ask you to go ahead with an entirely new programming language. So
uh,
that is very much understandable. People today are trying to change the colors and the size of the buttons and whatnot. So very much understandable.
correct. So exactly like in this course, like what exactly are going to cover that content you will share or will you show now?
Ankit, if you can.
Yes, I can quickly show you. So as for development, so for development, we have two courses. One is for CAPM and one is for RAP. And if we say non-development, security or identity access management, identity access governance, administration, integration, robotics process, and or AI or all IoT on, so these are different, but they are relevant for this webinar. There are two courses we have, and which will have one is CAPM, you say, in which these all first will start with cloud computing BTP overview, then basic BTP administration fundamental, because even you are a developer, but you have to understand some basics of administration part as well. So we have kept around 5 to 6 hours on this. And then we start getting into the development, like we understand Bash, we understand Visual Studio, how to do coding on top of that. And yes, because you'll be developing the application, then definitely your application must be having some security features to it. So you should understand authentication, authorization, auth codes, and authorization trust management services, role scopes, and all those things. Okay. And then if we go more into the back end and front end development, then definitely we'll be using Node.js there. And then we also can be limited to CAPM also. So that is also getting covered. So Node in detail, CAPM in detail. As a front end, you will be using UI5, Fiori, and then later some more concepts on multi-target application or multi-tenancy, and then connectivity. Let's say you want to connect your application, what you're developing, to any on-premise system to consume any services. That also will be covered as part of this training. And so this is one for CAPM. If I come to the RAP, then this will be the course curriculum. Sorry. I'm sorry. You have opened the wrong one. Yeah. So when I say wrap, then again, we'll be having some basics of BTP, and then we'll more and discuss on ABAP environments, and then these basic administration concepts. And again, then we'll go ahead with wrap business object, update and create in managed transaction app, and draft enabled transactional apps. So these are the topics we'll cover as a part of wrap training. Again, in this also, will at the end will understanding how integration can be done, how connectivity can be established, service consumption in a RAP. So this is what we have in this. We have proper end-to-end PowerPoint presentation available for these trainings. We have delivered already mini trainings for those. You will get LMS access like this. So you will have a day-wise lecture uploaded after session. Within 3 to 4 hours, you'll have a lecture uploaded there. And then I'm just taking example of one of other trainings. And then you'll be having slides for the day. So each lecture, each slide, then you'll also get some assignments. Let's say for first 4 module, these are the assignment. Then again, further you'll be having assignments for each module, which you have to do. You'll be getting one project to implement, and then we'll be conducting some mock test quiz questions on, let's say, some basics, then some going into a bit advanced topics, and further maybe more advanced to the topics maybe as soon as we'll proceed further. So we'll be having a lot of quiz questions, and in each section you have to do and test your knowledge. Normally, if I talk about the deliverables, so you'll be getting instructor training, free lab access for around 3 months. Normally, for development training, we have everything available for free from SAP only, so we use free trial only. But it's normally when we do security trainings, we need some licensed, solutions which we purchase. Then, in that case, we provide 3 months of lab access in licensed tool as well. Session recordings, you will get all PPTs which trainer is presenting. You'll get quotes what is used by trainer. You'll be getting it. Assignments, I told you. Mock test, I told you. And then you'll have a course completion certificate. If you wanted to have a look on some of our delivered session on demos, see, we have administration demo and we conduct webinars on security. Then again, it's a BTP security, IaaS. Even as a developer, you may need to understand if you wanted to have some security concept on IDP side, identity and access management. Then IEG, there are a lot of demos available for different trainings. You can go and have a look. See, this is BTP training CAPM. For a CAPM, there is a demo uploaded there. I can give you the link, so it's all. You can go and see, the way we have conducted our sessions. You can have a look at the quality what we deliver. And yes, anyway, I'll be there with you. Who will be coordinating and all the trainings. You can reach out to me in any case.
So in CAPM case, there is no JIT covered, right? JIT hub.
Okay, actually, there is one more course we have for development, which is advanced, where what happens is then your uh, DevOps will be covered in detail, some application lifecycle management, monitoring, and then I would say identity services, IES and IPS, and adding features to your application, more security features to your application, or adding workflows and all in your application. So normally this training goes a bit basic, but we have advanced training where then we go dig and deep. Like then there in that we have DevOps. But yes, if it is a request from participants, at least I can use some DevOps concept, CI/CD concept or Git and all those things in this course only. That's doable if only the DevOps is something which is missing. You feel like.
Okay. Okay. So kindly share both the contents, advanced also. So we'll
Sure,
plan accordingly.
because this one, because the target audience what for webinar I was have we were around 90% of people were a bit new to it, so that's why I didn't push on that. But yes, that is also available there. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So that's all, guys, from my side. Thanks for you to join, and yes, we extended for 10-15 minutes. Thanks for being there. And I hope if you really need, anything from me or you need any detailed information, you can call me on this number or you can WhatsApp me on this number. I will be able to share details with you. Any queries from anyone, or we are good to close? Okay, so I'll take this silence as a no. Thank you all for joining. I will again conduct some webinars. We'll let you know so that you can join. So mostly every month, 2 to 3 webinars will conduct. So I'll keep inviting you guys so that you can enhance your knowledge or you understand something new in the market. Okay, bye bye everyone.